I travelled to Portugal this week for a friend's birthday. And it reminded me of 2 years ago making the same trip just during the pandemic. And it reminded me of 2 years ago making the same trip towards the end of the pandemic when COVID requirements were still quite complex. I was massively overwhelmed by the variety of information I had to navigate through to understand what was required to travel into Portugal. The complexity of that process made me think about what it is that we do for our clients when we help them navigate the complex processes that they're trying to and the mess of information that they're trying to sift through when trying to solve their problems. Here is just a brief summary of some of the things I had to figure out just simply to get on a plane and go to Portugal. Firstly, the Visit Portugal website said that those with a vaccine passport did not require an extra COVID vaccination, did not require an extra COVID test before travelling into Portugal. However, second, the UK government website indicated that travellers from the UK going to Portugal did need a COVID test. Quite specifically, a rapid antigen test. However, it couldn't be one from a free walk-in test centre. It had to be one taken at home. I had rapid antigen tests at home, but I wasn't sure how I could use the one I had at home and register it for travel. So ultimately, it wasn't very clear what I had to do. Thirdly, I asked a friend who was recently traveling to Portugal. She told me that all I needed was the NHS app on my phone that showed my vaccination status and that I didn't need a test to go into Portugal. But this then left me confused. I then asked a different friend who'd been traveling around Europe, who had been traveling around Europe, what they had done, and they said they went to a pharmacy to get a test. They said they'd gone to a pharmacy to get a rapid antigen test ready for travel. So the next step was I went to a pharmacy. So this is now my fifth step. I went to my local pharmacy. I told them I was traveling abroad and that I needed a rapid antigen test. Unfortunately, the assistant told me that they didn't do the test, but that I should go to a free walk-in test centre and that I would get my results almost immediately. However, this left me confused. The sixth step was I followed her advice. I went to a free walk-in test centre. I took a PCR test, which is the most robust test, and they mailed me my results within 24 hours. When I received the results, I was clear from any COVID symptoms, and I believed I was ready to travel. The seventh step was I spoke to another friend who had recently been traveling abroad, and she told me that the walk-in test center PCR test was not valid for international travel. But instead, I needed to pay for the test and receive a certification that I could take to the airline ready for travel. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be allowed to board the plane. The eighth step was I spoke to another friend. This is now the fourth person that I've spoken to. He had also visited Portugal recently, and he told me that he went to a Boots pharmacy and that they sent him the results within 48 hours. Unfortunately, I now didn't have 48 hours before I could fly. I then checked with a fifth friend who told me, in fact, I needed 3 tests done. I needed a fit to fly test, a second day test, and a return test. He sent me a link to the government website where there was a 27-page PDF of EU guidelines around what type of tests to take when traveling around Europe. I then consulted a sixth friend who told me that she went to a travel doctor who was able to give her a same-day test and a certificate of fit to fly that she was able to take to the airport as validation of her recent testing. The next step was I spoke to a sixth friend who told me she went to a travel doctor who gave her a same-day test and a certificate of being fit to fly to take to the airport. So I then Googled travel doctor and I booked myself in with a fit to fly test, same day result. On my way to the airport, I went to the pharmacy and I took the test. They then told me that the test would be emailed to me by midnight. I told them that I actually needed a same-day test and that I was on my way to the airport right now. They then informed me that I had booked a PCR test, not a rapid antigen test. They were kind enough to refund me for the PCR test, rebook me a rapid antigen test, give me a fit to fly certificate so that I could go to the airport immediately. They were also kind enough to book me the day 2 test and the return test ready for when I was returning. They also very kindly gave me their clinic number just in case I had any questions about what I needed to fly at any time. The final step of all of this was I arrived at the airport who wanted the printed certificate of my recent test, but they didn't want to look at any certification around my COVID vaccines at all. And finally, I flew to Portugal. So I tell you this long drawn out story because this is like the microcosm of what it is that we're doing for our clients when we're serving them and their business. I like to call it eating complexity for our clients. We take a mess of facts and data that's available out there on websites and contradicting information in other places and via word of mouth. And we simplify it and distill it into the most relevant information for them. We can sequence it, we can prioritize it and give it to them in the steps that they need it. We can remove jargon and complex terms that only serve to create more confusion than clarify. We can seek to understand where they are at any single moment in their decision making and remove distractions and complexities that are only going to send them down a side route and further complicate things for them. We can see where there's gaps in their knowledge and seek to supplement it with just the right information to answer their question and get them to the next stage. Ultimately, we take something complex and we make it user-friendly and elegantly simple for them. We can sequence it so it's logical and coherent for them. We build a solution that is in bite-sized pieces and in steps that's easy to achieve. And in doing so, we get them from where they are now to their desired solution in the smoothest track possible. We do all the work so that it seems like they don't really have to do the work. They just have to follow this short and sweet process. By helping them bridge from where they are now over the challenge to their desired solution, we are freeing them to get on with their life and get on with what it is that they want to achieve. Ultimately, you don't get paid because you have secret knowledge that is not available to anybody else. You get paid because you go out and eat the complexity for your client. You take the complexity and distill it into something elegantly beautiful and simple for them. So take your mastery, turn it into simple solutions, and get paid for the value you create. That brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.